7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Howdy, Croc Nation. Dr. Tommy and Ellie here with you with another amazing Croc podcast. I say amazing because of me? Absolutely not. Amazing because of Angel? Probably. But more so because of you guys, because of the greatest people in the whole world, our cancer survivor slash thrivers on the other side of the computer, my sidekick and my best bud and my spiritual warrior, Mr. Angel Santana. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'll tell you, it feels like we have not been together for a very long time. So it feels like a reunion. It feels like it's just a perfect day to get the whole week started. How are you, man?
Oh, it's fantastic. Just to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit for everybody. This has been our summer vacation. We took a couple of weeks off. We had an amazing guest, Dr. Sophia Bennett Edwards, or Edward Bennett, Edwards Bennett, or I forgot. But in any case, she was a spectacular guest. Very, very heavy. I bet you it really took people who have a very spiritual core. I'm sure it spoke to them. And if so, we were very happy. She's an incredible woman. We'd recommend you listen. She has a heck of a story to tell. But now we're back and we're going to go to work, and we're going to kind of start back with what I found, in my days, Angel, I see and hear a lot of things, and I've been doing this a long time. We all know that. But sometimes things kind of shock me still. And I heard a story from a family member, and I thought it would be a really good podcast. So today we're going to talk about what is the responsibility of your doctor to tell you about the procedure you're about to have. It's sort of dedicated to our patient that we spoke about a few weeks ago, our blind woman with the breast cancer, when she asked us to be very clear and go through every step of the way. Which you could certainly understand if you were blind and you can't see and you have all these strangers touching you and disrobing you and putting you on hard table surfaces and things like that. It was a great inspiration. And I think that this is going to be a great one too, because I'll set the stage for us.
Sure.
So my brother-in-law, his name is Barry, very nice man. He unfortunately maybe a couple of years ago had a stroke, and recently had a second stroke. And he is sharp as a tack and knows everything that's going on. But the stroke took away a lot of his articulation, his ability to talk. And he has the unfortunate complexion, unlike me and you, Angel, of having very, very porcelain white skin. So as such, besides his other medical problems, he ended up with skin cancer. And the doctor recommended a surgery. It's called Mohs surgery, which is a pretty detailed surgery, where the dermatologist or the dermatologic surgeon takes out the skin cancer and tests all the edges and the margins and things. And it's quite intense surgery. And when the scheduler called to set him up for the surgery, his wife was on the phone because, of course, Barry has a hard time, communicating. She said, okay, we're happy to have the surgery. Can you tell us a little bit about this thing called the Mohs surgery? And the lady on the phone said, you're going to have to look that up. So today's podcast is a little bit about that. What not to do. What is the wrong answer to that question? Look it up. So we're going to talk a little bit about look it up and what your doctor's responsibility is. And I'm happy to say that Barry has a brother-in-law who's a doctor and a sister-in-law who is an advocate. So he's in good shape. But the woman who told him that will not be in very good shape because she needs to learn a lesson. But in any case, when I did my due diligence on today's podcast, Angel, I was also very disappointed in just the oncologic literature. Because as many articles there are about teaching patients the questions to ask their doctors, there's nothing that makes the doctor accountable to the patient. It's always the patient being accountable to the doctor. So what are the 5 best questions a patient can ask a doctor? What are the 10 things you need to know before you go in for your surgery? And I think that's bogus. I think that's terrible because I think that we as physicians, your healthcare team, your oncologic care team, we owe you that obligation of being able to answer your questions and being able to describe to you what you're about to go through. So there were no papers about, what, your doctor is supposed to be accountable for. But it is a good refresher, I thought, Angel, really quick, really, I thought, fun podcast to get back into the swing of things after a bit of a summer break. So basically to refocus us on what our basic duties are. So what exactly is the responsibility of your doctor as it relates to disclosure? So I just want to be clear that this podcast is not an informed consent podcast. I know I've been telling you guys we're going to do that soon to kind of put together the pieces, and we will, but tonight is not about that. It's just about talking about Mohs surgery or having your pancreas taken out or having your thyroid taken out or having a mastectomy or having a lumpectomy, having your prostate taken out, having, me put in prostate seeds into your prostate. What are our obligations to you guys? And that's what we're going to talk about. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to take that woman to task a bit. But really, we're going to do it by taking her boss to task. As a physician, and we've had a couple of discussions about this on our podcast series about the power of the front desk and how a secretary or someone who answers the phone could have so much power and could be such a either your best friend or your worst enemy when it comes to trying to talk to your doctor or get information from your doctor. And I think that we have to remind our colleagues that it's our responsibility to control our staff. Everything that comes out of our staff's mouth is a direct reflection on us. It's almost as if we said to the patient, look it up. We didn't say it. The doctor didn't say it to the patient. Either his scheduler, his nurse, his secretary, his front desk, whoever said it to him, but he might as well have said it to my brother-in-law. So as I said, the staff is a direct reflection of you. It's like what you said, what they said is exactly coming out of your mouth. So what are some of the things you need to do? You have to empower your staff for sure, because there's no possible way we can field every single question and every single issue that comes up in a day. And I'm very blessed to have the greatest group of nurse practitioners and nurses and clerical staff. They're just wonderful. They're very patient focused, and I'm very, very, very blessed and honored to work with them. But that's not without having trained them, right? So they have to be trained. You have to make sure you empower them for what they can do, but make sure they know what their limits are. Make sure they know what to say, and make sure they know, even more importantly, what not to say. You can script them if you have to. I know a lot of offices have a script that they would have a secretary use, in case of circumstances where the patient's difficult or if there's something they don't know, so they don't get flustered. They can be your triage, they can be your liaison, but they are not a doctor. You have to make sure that you accept the responsibility of you went to 4 years of medical school, you went through at least 5 years of training, you had to take all sorts of tests and boards and all that stuff, and then you had to go through your residencies and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? You did that for a reason. That's your responsibility. You have to be a facilitator between the patient and yourself. And you have to set up face-to-faces when needed. And your staff has to know that. So if that person didn't feel comfortable explaining what Mohs surgery was, then there should have been a script that said, I don't personally do that talk, but let me get my nurse educator to call you back. Let me get the doctor to call you back. Let's make an appointment where you could come in and we can do, a teaching session for you. So that's the first thing, is control over your staff. The second part of the podcast is a reminder to self. So a good surgeon's life has limitations on time. When you find a good surgeon, everybody knows. The nurses know, the other doctors know. Everybody knows who to go to. Everyone knows who not to go to. So as a result, just say, I know a wonderful dermatologic surgeon. His name is Ed Deshiak, who practices in the Hudson Valley. He's as good as they get. He's a busy guy, and he's booked solid probably for months and months and months and months. So Ed, although this story is not about Ed or his staff, I just want to be clear. It's still not an excuse to skip a step or to cut a corner just because you're busy. You need to spend more time with special patients. So we have patients that I call special. Barry is a special patient because he just had 2 strokes, and he may not be able, he knows everything. He understands everything. But I'm gonna tell you, he comes over for dinner almost every weekend, and you have to be very patient because you got to let him talk and let him try to get it out, and what's going on, and he knows what's going on, but you have to have that patience. Also, there are patients that are special because they have limited medical knowledge. Most people have limited medical knowledge, just as I don't know anything about carpentry. And I'm going to do an analogy in a bit about painting. I don't know anything about painting a house. But you know what? If I was having someone, when I went over to the Benjamin Moore shop the other day to buy paint, the woman was very patient with me because I didn't know anything about paint. Also, we have special patients that have limited capacity. And in these cases, you especially have to take your time and make sure they understand things to the best of their ability, or their advocates or their healthcare proxies know exactly what's going on. So that's our responsibility. We also have to recognize that the patient education process is a very, very important one, and you can't skip it. So here's my painting analogy. So my dear friend Caesar, who's our painter, came to paint a few rooms this weekend, and I watched him because I'm not a painter, and I watched him prep, and I watched him put on a base layer or a primer layer. Then I watched him put on the first coat and then the second coat. He was basically doing what he knows how to do. I couldn't have told you those steps. So if I were to ask Caesar, Caesar, what are you going to do? He'd be required to tell me all the steps. He'd have to tell me how he was going to prep the walls, how he was going to take out all the screws and the nails and fill them in with putty, and then he was going to clean the walls, and he was going to sand them and even them out, and make any adjustments or any sort of repairs that he would need to do. And then I would watch him put on his base layer and his primer layer, and he would go through the whole process. We are required to do the same thing. Why should any sort of tradesman or anybody in any other profession who has to explain things to us, why do we not have that same responsibility that everyone else in the world does just because we're busy doctors? That just doesn't hold water. That's just not right. And lastly, we need to recognize that the teaching is not just for for that procedure, it's forever. So we have to go through the pre-procedural information. Sometimes patients have to have clearance. Angel, when you've had your procedures, you might have had some blood taken or a chest x-ray or an EKG. You have to let them know what's going to happen during the procedure process, not even when you're in the OR, but like when you walk in the door and you register and they take you up the same day surgery, and then they bring you into your little cubby, and then you change into your gown, and you have to know everything that's going to happen.
Right.
And then what happens when you wake up. The easy part is when you fall asleep. When you wake up, like, you should know what to expect to see. You're going to see the nurse. How are you going to feel? You're going to be nauseous. Will you feel spacey? Will you not know where you are? Because imagine that would be scary to wake up and not know where you are. But if you know going in that when you wake up, you might be disoriented, somewhere in the back of your mind, that might stick, right? Then you might have, what are some of the post-procedure long-term stuff that you have to know? Or, now my brother-in-law, he had skin cancer. He has, as I said, porcelain skin. He's been in the sun a lot in his whole life.
Right.
He's probably going to get a dozen or more of these skin cancers, what to look for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all the things that were left out of his conversation with his doctor or his doctor's team.
Right.
So as I said, this is going to be a short one today. So to conclude, I want my colleagues to put themselves in the shoes of their patients. I think that the number one unifying emotion when it comes to cancer and cancer procedures is fear. And I know that the number one unifying solution to fear is knowledge. And no matter how difficult the road is to the healing, and I've been down this road a million times for our survivor thrivers who are very courageous people, I have yet in my entire career yet to meet even one patient who was not up to the challenge as long as they knew what the challenge was.
Right.
The only issues I have seen is when our patients don't know what's ahead of them, don't know what the procedure or the intervention is, don't know what the toxicities of the treatments are, and don't know what to do when the proverbial shit hits the fan. So please, 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 my dear colleagues, never ever tell a patient to just look it up. Teach them what they need to know. Angel Santana, have faith, let it begin. What you got for me?
I think it's interesting. I think this is a great episode. I think it's a way for everyone that can really truly relate to. And there are very few people that have never had procedures done, right? But there's many of us, myself included, who have just feel like we're just prone to it. But even someone like me who has had abundance amount of surgeries, I'm always very interested in knowing what exactly I'm going to get myself into, even if it's the same reoccurring type of procedure. I think what people have to remember is we have a voice. We have the opportunity to gain the knowledge and to understand what is happening to us. And I think if we just empower ourselves to know that we have that opportunity, and we know that they are technically working for us, that you are the boss and you are the person that has the opportunity to make sure that every answer is answered in the right way and all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. And I think when you do that, it also gives you a little bit more peace of mind.
Oh my God, Angel couldn't have said it any better. And I want to just close out by telling all you guys, this is your pep talk. You are not a bother. You are not taking up time for your busy doctor. That is time that is allotted to you or should be allotted to you. That is time that you deserve. When it comes to getting paid by Medicare, Medicare has a structure that requires the doctor to spend a certain amount of time with you in order to get reimbursed for the code that they submit. So if they are at all in a rush or trying to gyp you for your time, you got to know that that is your time. And if they don't give you that time, they're actually committing fraud, believe it or not, because they're not giving you enough time. Number two is that I know you guys are afraid and you don't want to piss off your doctor or alienate your doctor. You don't want this great surgeon to get angry at you because you're asking too many questions, and that means they might kick you out of the practice or whatever. Any doctor that would get mad at you or kick you out of the practice because you were taking too much of your time, I don't care if they were the Michelangelo of Mohs surgery, call me, call Angel. We'll find you someone else. We may not get Michelangelo, but we'll get Leonardo da Vinci. We'll get somebody else to take off your skin cancer. I promise. I think a lot of times you guys are so emotionally drained and you don't feel well and you have so many other responsibilities. And that's what this podcast is all about, defining all of these things that are happening in your life and to absolutely elevate you and support you and advocate for you, because you deserve that and you deserve to know everything that's going on. On behalf of Angel Santana and the board of directors, I want to just acknowledge everyone for their expertise and their help and their wonderful gift of their talents for you guys, because you certainly deserve it. And we'll end today's podcast as we end each and every single podcast, and that is with the Dr. E blessing. That's wishing each of our cancer survivor and thrivers and their families and their caregivers, their doctors, the nurses, and everybody associated with cancer a long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Don't forget, everyone, the CROC podcast is available every single Sunday. This is a great opportunity for you to give us a review. Make sure you like us, subscribe to us, and always remember, we are here exactly for you. This is the opportunity to come and join us each and every weekday. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you next week. The CROC podcast every Sunday, strictly for you at 9 a.m.